Hi everyone, it's just Paul again. It's been highlighted to me that the sound went a bit weird on the second half of that video, so I'm going to redo the second half again from the champion hurdle onwards. Yeah, the champion hurdle, it should go the way of Bouvre Dare. He's the reigning champion, the only horse who's actually beaten him over jumps or hurdles, whatever you want to call them, is Altior, who's obviously on his way to being a Hall of Famer. The ground is fine. He's been hosing in on heavy ground all winter, and this is not as good as last year's renewal, in my opinion. So for me, it's a no-brainer that Bouvre Dare retains this. Faheen is back, which is great to see. Obviously, former champion. He came back with a win this season. Don't know what went wrong at Christmas. Completely faltered. No reason was really given. There was talk of weird betting patterns, etc. But then bounced back last time for a second, but he still looked a fraction of his former self. Though Super Sunday is favourite for the Stayers hurdle, it's a big leap of faith, even with the new cheek pieces being added now for Faheen. My Tent or Yours, three times second in this race. He's a grand stager, won the International, which was great to see, even though we're tipped up on my WhatsApp service. I think it was the new one that day. He is a spring horse, so he comes in the spring. So again, he's not getting any younger, but I can see My Tent or Yours going mighty close. Elgin is interested because he's been supplemented in the last few days at a fee of £20,000. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting move to make. He's got some form, but not bags of form. At the highest level. His win at Wincanton last time, it's not as good as I don't think as people make out, because that day I think it was Cliffs of Dover charged off like 40 lengths in the lead and blew up, so we had a great pace to aim at. And Chitibello, who's good but not top class standard, was not that far behind him. The other thing to notice with Elgin as well, his best runs is when he has a bigger break in between, and he's had less than 4 weeks here, so that would slightly temper my enthusiasm here. Just a quick recap on the contingent of Willie Mullins. York Hill is a complete and utter enigma. He won at the festival a couple of years ago, beat my Napa the festival that year, Yanworth, with no worries at all. But this year has just not put his best foot forward. If he did, and it was the return to that form of 2 years ago, he would probably win this champion, but you just don't know if he's ever going to do it. Wicklow Brave, it's his first run for 4 months, in fact, since he run on the other side of the world in Australia in the Melbourne Cup. So that will be a concern. And last year, he came 7th of 11. So to come 7th one year with no excuse to then go and win the following year, that's not for me. And Mellon, as I said before, he's decent, but he's overrated and hasn't proven it at the top level for me. An unoriginal 1, 2, 3, Bouvre Dare from Faheen and My Tent or Yours. The 410 it's one of the smallest fields I've seen in this race for a long time, the David Nicholson Mears Hurdle, and I think you look no further than Apple's Jade, the reigning champion. She's unbeaten since she won this last year, and this race, a bit like the champion hurdle, looks a lot weaker. Goes on any ground, stays all day, but has the pace for 2 miles too. It's got everything you need for a winner. Benny de Dieu for Willie Mullins is interested, purely because of Willie Mullins' record in the race with the likes of Vroom Vroom Mag and Quavega, and he had, I think it was Limini, and them came second and third last year. He came back from a year off with she came back from a year off with 2 easy chase wins, but it's a bit of a surprise to see her back over hurdles because her record is only 2 from 6 over hurdles in France. I thought she might have gone for something like the Close Brothers Plate, but they've thrown her in here. But for Mullins' record, you've got to give her a lot of credit. Le Bagawa is for Warren Greatchicks in great form, but the increase in form seems to be for the step up and trip to 3 miles. So seeing a drop down to 2.5 miles does surprise me somewhat, I must be honest. Especially, the one thing that surprised me is to see the price at 5 to 1. Because a couple of runs ago, she beat by a neck a horse who's also in here called Jers Girl. Now, Jers Girl's got form figures of 4.22 this season, including a 2 lengths a second behind Apple's Jade. And in that race, Kempton was going a lot better, I would say, 2 out than Le Bagawar, but got outstayed. Where Le Bagawar coming back in trip doesn't seem logical, it does seem logical for Jers Girl. And also, if you watch the race from last year, she was cruising 3 out when falling. So as long as that hasn't left a mental scar coming back here, I would actually be more inclined to go with Jers Girl at 14-1 than Le Bagawar at 5-1. It's a small renewal, as I said, compared to previous years, but confidence on a 1-2-3 of Apples Jade from Jers Girl and Benny Didier. The 450 is the National Hunt Chase, and this is the most competitive race on the card because you could literally back 8 or 9 here comfortably and give good reasons. Interestingly enough, no horse that ran in the race last year is running again, which makes it a bit difficult. Gordon Elliott's got the first 2 in the market, Jury Duty and Mossbank. Now, Jury Duty has come first or second in every run this season. His only below par effort for me was when dropped back to 2 mile 4, so going up to 4 miles seems quite logical and looks to be very, very solid. While Mossbank represents Jigginstown, who won this last year with Tiger Roll. He actually fell when challenging Jury Duty at the last back in January, and it would have been interesting to see how the finish went. Likes to run from the front as well, which I think is beneficial. Last year I did Champers on ice, and I think it was Beware the Burr, and both were mid to back, and it was just a waste of time because this is amateur riders, and amateur riders can struggle around Cheltenham. The sire for Mossbank is Yates as well, so stamina is virtually assured. No comment for the Hobbs Yards, interesting, because he booked Derek O'Connor, one of the top amateurs. And his first run back this year, he travelled really well in a Grade 1 novice chase before ultimately being found out. He's bred out of Cape Tara, so again, stamina should be assured. Though the only slight temperament on this is he's never gone over 2 mile 4, never mind 3 miles, and this is 4. Miss Parfois, very consistent, but for me, she's already had 6 runs this year. So for a mare, even with a mare's allowance, to come out on a 7th run and win a race like this, stepped up to 4 miles, it would be an unbelievable training performance and not what I'm willing to gamble on. Size in Tennessee is worth a mention purely because he loves the course, but his jumping is always an issue for top jockeys, never mind amateurs, though there could be a little less taxing on jumping with obviously going a slower pace at the longer trip. But my idea of the winner of this race is the Willie Mullins trained Rath Vinden. In his last 2 runs, he's been travelling really well in Group 1s. He fell and then was brought down, both when he definitely would have been in the first 3 for me. He's run very well at the course before. I think it was the Neptune he ran on and got placed a few years back. And stamina is all over the sire side, so guaranteed. As I said, you could pick any combination of 9 here, but from a 1-2-3, happy to go with Rath Vinden from Mossbank and no comment. Which brings us nicely to the last race, which is the 5:30, which is the Close Brothers listed handicap chase over 2.5 mile. Ultra competitive as always, and there's a bit of a interpretation issue here for me. The second favourite, challenging for favourite now, is a horse called Any Second Now for Ted Walsh. Has been placed 4 times this year, twice behind Footpad, once behind Invitation Only and Monolly. All of them are in the first 2 or 3 in the market for Group 1s at the festival. So in terms of back form, it's pretty good. No winning chase form, though, is a bit of a concern for me. I like to know a horse can get ahead in front. Now, Any Second Now is owned by JP McManus, the green and gold colours. Now, JP McManus, as you know, his main jockey is Barry Geraghty. Well, seemingly Barry Geraghty is not riding Any Second Now. He's down at the 48-hour decks to ride Demi Sang. Now, Demi Sang is for Willie Mullins and was really impressive on debut in January. Very impressive, in fact, on his first run from France. I've watched the video back before. However, the next run, he made a massive mistake at the first. Was on the back foot. You can put a line through that. Now, if the first Demi Sang turns up, he's got every chance. If the second one does, he doesn't. But it seems Barry Geraghty has picked this one, which is a big sign. Barney Dwan was second in the Pertemps final last year, so you know he likes the course, at least over hurdles, and he stays 3 miles, which is a big, important part. And he's improved with each run this year, but this is a huge step up again from the little fields he's been taken in. He should be fine in the big fields because he ran in the Pertemps, but it's another couple of question marks against him. The favourite at the moment at about 3.5 to 4-1 is Gordon Elliott's De Plottin Shed. Now, he's potentially thrown in on his old hurdles form, but he's just not seemed the real deal for me over fences so far this year. I'm not saying he's not, like, you know, much better than his mark in his handicap, But for me, at only 4-1, you can't even really back him each way, and that's plenty short enough in a competitive handicap. Ballyhill at 60 is probably overpriced at 16-1, being a course and distance winner, and he would have a great chance off his mark for James Bargary if his jumping holds up. He's already fallen at Aintree earlier this year when travelling well. When I was actually there, on the Beecher Chase meeting, he then won next time at Cheltenham, jumped amazing and did well, but then his jumping went to pieces the next time at Cheltenham and finished well down the hill, so you just don't know what you're going to get. The ground is fine, but if you're looking, as you often do in these handicaps, for something to punt at a very big price, Ballyhill could be the one. Though the idea of the winner for me is a bit out of left field, really, because it's trained by Mick Shannon. You know more for the flat, and that is Mr. Whitaker. Purely because he was in a really impressive course and distance, course winner over 2 mile 5, so not quite course and distance, a bit further. In soft going back in January, he beat Theatre Territory by a length and a half, but what got me is it was 15 lengths back to third, which suggests 1, he loved the ground, 2, he stays all day, and 3, it's a solid piece of form. He's managed to sneak in because of that on a great mark, and a price at the moment at around 11-1. That's my idea of the horse that I'd be backing on this one. As said, there's so many you could pick, but I just purely like to stick to form if I can. So my 1, 2, 3 here, it's Mr. Whitaker from Demi Sang and Ballyhill. Thanks again for listening, and also thanks for highlighting that the last sound went on the second half of the last one. I'll be back soon with day 2. Cheers.